Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tales at 2, Cedar Run again. This is Miss Erin coming to you live from Cedar Run. As you can see, it's raining a little bit, but that's not going to deter us this afternoon. So we're going to be talking turtles today. So we talked a little bit about raptors and different types of birds the last few days, so I wanted to switch it over to our friends, the reptiles. So as many of you know, reptiles are our scaly friends. They've got dry, scaly skin to protect their bodies. And it's similar to ours, but it's much tougher and thicker than ours would be. So it's going to protect our scaly friends as they're moving along outside. Maybe they're scraping up against tree branches, maybe they're moving through leaves and over rocks. It's going to make sure that they don't get all scraped and scratched up. So we have a lot of different reptiles in New Jersey. We've got the snakes and the turtles. We also have lizards. But we're going to be focusing just on our turtle friends today. So just like all of our other reptiles, our turtle friends are going to have the scales, but they of course have something different. They've got their shells. So these guys not only have the scales to protect them, they've got their shell as protection too. So it's kind of like carrying your house around on your back. It's able to protect them from anything scary. And a lot of different types of turtles are able to partially or completely hide inside their shells. So if a predator comes along or something frightening, they're hopefully able to hide in there and nobody's able to hurt them. Right? So, our visitor for this afternoon is my friend Tommy Turtle. And you guys are going to notice I'm going to hold him on this little heating pad because it is a little chilly out today. I don't want our friend to get too cold. So another thing that reptiles have is they are cold-blooded. So that means their blood isn't cold, but it varies with the temperature outside. So this guy might be kind of chilly if it's a chilly day. If it's a warm day, his body's going to be warm. Unlike us, where our temperature is usually around 98.6 degrees, his temperature is going to be different depending on what the weather's like outside. So in the case of our reptile friends, they don't like to get too cold. They're not able to warm themselves up very easily unless they're sitting in the sun or sitting on something warm like this. So all of our reptile friends like to hibernate or sleep in the wintertime, at least here in New Jersey, because the weather does get pretty chilly. All right, so our friend Tommy is an eastern box turtle, and he's been at Cedar Run for more than 20 years. He's kind of an old guy. And people are always asking me, how do we know how old Tommy is? We actually don't. So a lot of times people think that if you measure the size of the turtle shell or you measure the rings or the boxes on the back of his shell, you're able to tell his age. That's not necessarily true. Once he gets to be adult size, we can't tell anymore. So Tommy's been with us since he was an adult, and we're not sure exactly how old he was when he came in. So Tommy is with us mostly because someone had him as a pet, and they probably did not give him the right diet. So he's got a lot of issues, especially with his shell. So if you guys can scope out, he's got lots of little cracks in his shell. He's got a larger one over here on the side, and he has some spots on his shell that are kind of whitish. So the whitish parts on his shell are actually parts of the shell poking through. They're not covered with these same scales as the rest of his shell. So he also, because of this, he has lots of curves or curvy parts to his shell. His shell should be nice and straight and flat on the edges. And it makes it kind of hard for him to hide in his shell like he would like to. So because of his shell issues, he actually had some sort of injury. We're not sure exactly what happened, but he ended up losing one of his legs because of it. So having that shell to protect him is super important. If he's not able to hide in it like he needs to, it's kind of hard for him to keep safe. So in Tommy's case, we think because someone raised him or had him as a pet for a while, they didn't give him the right diet. So this guy is not just eating lettuce, right? He's not just eating leaves. He's eating a variety of stuff. So he's called an omnivore. That means he eats plants, fruits and veggies. He eats meat as well. And of course, he's not eating chicken nuggets. He's going to be eating bugs and maybe small mice and things like that. So the person probably only gave him a very basic diet, didn't have all the vitamins and minerals that he needed. So his shell didn't grow right. So it's kind of like a person. Sometimes our bones might be brittle if we don't get all the vitamins that we need. That's what happened with Tommy. So unfortunately, hopefully his shell is not getting any worse. He's getting a proper diet with us at Cedar Run. But unfortunately, we can't fix the issues that are wrong with it. His shell is going to forever be in the state that it is. So my friend Tommy is one of our ambassadors. That means he gets to go out to schools and do programming like we're doing this afternoon. So as you can see, he's kind of friendly. He's not minded too much other than a couple raindrops hitting him on his head. All right, any questions out there? No questions? All right, guys. If you have questions, of course, feel free to go ahead and ask. So my friend Tommy, I said, is a box turtle. Can anyone tell me why a box turtle is called a box turtle?
Somebody asked, what does he feel like?
Oh, what does he feel like? First, let's answer why he's a box turtle, then I'll go back to that, I promise. So my friend the box turtle is not because he has a box for a shell, of course. It's because his shell kind of acts like a box. He's able to close it up, just like we would close up a shoe box. So on Tommy's belly, he has a special hinge, this little line right here, if you all can see it, and that helps him close his shell, just like a hinge on a door helps us close the door. And he's able to completely hide in his shell. But unfortunately, because of Tommy's shell issues, he can't do that like he needs to. He can pull inside a little bit, but he's not able to hide the same way as a healthy box turtle would. So our friend that wanted to know how he feels, he actually feels different in different spots. So he's got very tough, rough scales on the front of his legs. That's because those are the ones that are leading the way as he's walking. So they're going to have a little extra bumpy protection to help him when he's walking through the leaves and through the tree branches. He has scales on his back legs too, but these are actually a little smoother. They almost feel like our skin, right? And then of course his shell is actually sort of smooth, even though it looks like it might be a little bit bumpy. It's very tough and very strong, but kind of smooth.
You have a bunch of questions.
A bunch of questions. All right, go for it.
Okay, so I think you got what does he feel like pretty good in that one. How old can a box turtle get?
Oh, good one. So if anyone's been watching our live feeds the last couple days, I've said that there are animals that live with us usually live longer than they would in the wild because they have a whole lot less to care about. In the case of turtles, a lot of times, especially box turtles, they live less than they normally would in the wild. So in the case of a box turtle, typically in the wild, they can live upwards of 50 years, sometimes up to 70 or 80 years old if they're very lucky. But a lot of times in captivity, they only live to be about 30 or 40 years old. So still a pretty long life for how tiny and fragile this guy seems. But he's not in a hurry. He's taking his life slowly, right? And he's enjoying everything along the way.
Okay. So Liam wants to know why he eats chicken nuggets. I think that one might have gotten a little...
he doesn't eat chicken nuggets. He doesn't like to eat chicken nuggets too much. This guy is eating meat, but not chicken nuggets. He's going for more of the bug variety of his meat. So we don't always think of bugs as being meat, but they are a living thing, right? So that's something that he really enjoys to eat.
Okay, and Lainey wants to know what kind of animals try to eat box turtles.
Oh, good one. Actually, a lot of animals try to eat box turtles, but because of their shells, most of the time they don't end up getting eaten. So as long as he's fast enough to hide in his shell, if something comes along, he usually stays safe. So an animal that may go for him could be a fox or a raccoon. Sometimes in certain spots, sometimes even larger birds of prey, the raptors might go for him, but they have a trick to get him out. Anybody have an idea of how they get him out of his shell? Nothing? So some birds are pretty smart and they know that the shell is protecting this guy, and they'll actually, if they are able to pick a turtle up, they take him up very high and they'll drop him on the ground to break his shell open. It's kind of sad, but it's pretty smart.
Ellie would like to know if he can swim.
He actually can't swim. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So I'm going to get a little closer so you can check him out. So there's lots of different types of turtles, right? Turtles usually like to live in the water, or at least partly in the water. So the way we can tell if they like the water or not is by what their feet look like. So if you guys are able to see Tommy's feet, he doesn't have a flipper, he doesn't have a fin. Instead, he has claws on his toes. That tells me he likes to spend a lot of his time on the ground. So if he had more of a flipper foot, he might be a sea turtle, right? If he has more of a webbed foot, like a duck, he might be a turtle that spends some of his time in the water. So in the case of box turtles, they spend pretty much their whole life on land. They're not good swimmers at all. Good question.
Hunter wants to know if he's ever met a cat.
I don't think he's ever met a cat, but we kind of think maybe that a cat or a dog is what hurt his leg. So because someone had him as a pet, they probably had other pets too. And maybe Tommy was out roaming around and wasn't able to hide from that other pet, and that's how he got injured. So we don't know for sure, but it's possible.
Gregory would like to know what kind of bugs they eat.
So these guys mostly like to eat worms and grubs and kind of wiggly around guys because they don't move too fast. But you might go for beetles and other little bugs too.
Okay. And Beth just wanted to say that they saw a hawk drop a turtle on his shell as well.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's not going to happen too often that a hawk's going to try to eat one because it is a whole lot of work. But if he just happens to find one, he might try to go for it.
Okay. Charlotte wants to know if they shed their skin.
They do sort of shed their skin. So if you guys have ever had dry skin, you get a little bit flaky, right? These guys are going to more do that than what the snakes do, right? The snakes like to shed their skin completely. They lose all of it at the same time. These guys will just lose a little bit at once.
Pamela would like to know what his favorite food is.
Oh, Tommy's favorite food. I happen to have some of it with us today. I was hoping maybe he would eat for us. Y'all want to see? All right, so we're going to put Tommy back in his little box. My videographer wants to get a little closer. So Tommy gets a lot of different stuff to eat here at Cedar Run, but his favorite things are strawberries and watermelon and all sorts of good fruit. So I'm hoping Tommy might be a little hungry today, and maybe he will want to eat some of our fruit. Maybe not. See if I put it out on the tray. So Tommy doesn't get a lot of fruit. It's kind of a little bit of a junk food thing. He gets all sorts of different things to make sure he's getting a nice varied diet. You interested, Tom? He said, no, not interested today, Miss Erin.
We have another question. Is his shell like an external spine?
Oh, it is. So I have my little fake shell here, if I can show it to you all. Well, not fake, but not a live shell. So if you guys can kind of see, there's a line down the back of it. Almost looks like a stripe. That is the backbone of the turtle. So on the inside, can't see it as good on this one, but the turtle shell is attached to his backbone. So if you've ever seen a cartoon, and moms and dads probably know this, and in cartoons they always have turtles take their shells off and walk away. They're not able to do that. Their shells are attached to their backs. So as Tommy gets bigger, or any turtle gets bigger, their shell grows with them. All right, so I also have with me today our snapping turtle shell, which as you can see is much bigger than Tommy. This is as big as Tommy gets, but snapping turtles grow their whole life, so they always get really big. Their spine is much, much easier to see. So as you can see not only his spine, his backbone, you can see his ribs too. So this is not a turtle that we hurt, don't worry about that. It's a turtle that someone had found a shell for out in the woods.
Okay, Julie wants to know, from Gregory, how hard do their shells get? And are some turtle shells harder than others?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Most turtles have the same kind of hardness to their shells, Tommy. There's actually some turtle called a soft shell turtle. So his shell is a little bit more squishy. It's not going to protect him as well. But that turtle lives in the water, so he doesn't need as much protection as a turtle that's walking around on the land would.
And Barbara would like to know why he isn't hibernating.
Ah, good question. So I said earlier, if you all have been watching for a while, that turtles in New Jersey would like to hibernate because they're cold-blooded. They don't like the cold. In Tommy's case, he lives inside all year round. So today is a little bit of a chilly morning or afternoon for him to be out, but normally he's in a room with heat lamps and all of that, so he stays warm all year. So any of our normal turtles that live outside New Jersey, they are still hibernating. Some are starting to wake up because we've had a couple warm days. But Tommy gets to be warm all the time, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Good questions.
Does he have hair on his body?
He does not have hair. So because he's a reptile, he only has scales. No hair, no fur, nothing like that. No feathers.
Okay. That's all the questions I have right now.
All right. So friends, if you have any other questions, go ahead and answer. If not, we're going to start ending up on our, because it is kind of chilly out here for my friend. I don't want to keep him out too long. A nice little close-up of my buddy.
We have another question about swimming, but they may have missed that he does not swim.
Yes, correct. So I was saying earlier, it's how their feet look. So my friend Tommy has claws on his feet. He's not a very good swimmer. Some turtles around here swim some, and they're on the land some, but box turtles are always a land turtle. They're not going to get anywhere else.
Does he have teeth?
He does not have teeth. So that's actually a fun little trivia for you guys out there. He doesn't have teeth, but if you look at his face, it kind of looks like the beak of a bird, right? So a turtle's mouth is actually called a beak, just like a bird's mouth is. So it's kind of sharp. It helps him cut up plants and the bugs that he's eating. But he's not going to really chew them. He's kind of just going to gum them a little bit, and then he swallows it. All right, friends, so I'm going to finish up this afternoon. So I want to get my buddy back inside where it's nice and toasty and warm. So I want to thank everyone for coming out to visit with us. And just to know, if you guys have ever been to Cedar Run before, our nature center is unfortunately closed right now, but our wildlife housing area and our trails are open. We still serve the public in our wildlife hospital, so if you ever find an injured animal, you can still bring it to us. Donations, of course, are very important to Cedar Run, so if you're able to give, we appreciate anything you can give to us. If there's any more questions, I'll answer them a little bit later in the feed, but thank you everybody for coming out. Have a good afternoon.